normal people become terrified of criminals.
Shots were just fired. Police just came out and told us, and we're headed there right now.
They become terrified of their own government.
This is big news. It's breaking just a couple hours ago. Harvard covered up a secret plagiarism probe into President Claudine Gay during anti-Semitism storm.
Faking Gay.
Threatened the Post. So this is ongoing.
Yeah.
While this whole scandal, like before this stuff's going on, before Ali Stefanik questions her, apparently she was being investigated for plagiarism. We have this huge thread from Aaron Siberium, who says, Chris Rufo's examples are just the tip of the iceberg. In 4 articles published between 93 and 2017, including her dissertation, Gay paraphrased or quoted almost 20 authors without proper attribution, in some cases lifting entire paragraphs verbatim. He's got the evidence right here.
Her dissertation began, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
I mean, look. This is a massive scandal where we are learning that the president of Harvard plagiarized her way through her dissertation for over 20 years. They know this. They knew this. They covered it up. She then makes shockingly offensive statements, and they refuse to fire her. New York Post reports.
It's great to be a leftist.
Yeah, that's right. You can do nothing. You can do no wrong. Hunter Biden, look at that. Harvard University covered up a high-level investigation into whether its controversial president was a plagiarist and used an expensive law firm to threaten the Post over our own probe. The college announced Tuesday morning that it investigated Claudine Gay over whether some of her academic work was plagiarized and had cleared her of breaching the college's standards for research misconduct. I will say it again. The only qualification for the job is that you are a member of the cult. And then everything else is irrelevant. She's a good cult member. She serves the cult. Should we fire her? Of course not. She's doing her job.
Yeah. All that matters is pushing the ideology. All that matters is pushing leftist. And that's what I was trying to talk about with like the NAACP calling for the boycott of
the best state in America.
All these institutions, all they do is push leftist ideas. Yeah. And when they come into clash with reality, if reality is not their leftist agenda, then reality gets pushed aside.
But even if they fire her, they're just going to replace her with someone just as bad. Yeah. The same kind of cult member that's going to be giving out that woke Kool-Aid, the same kind of individual that's going to be along the same lines. So I don't understand why they won't fire her and just replace her with a worse person and then kind of appease the mob that's trying to
because she's good at what she does as a priest of wokeness.
The sad thing is that as we're having this conversation, there is still a lovely patriotic, quote unquote, patriotic, no, I won't even quote unquote, patriotic American family that is sitting there with their 17-year-old daughter, and they are plotting to get her into Harvard.
They're waiting for that letter being like, ooh, fingers crossed.
And they're doing all the essays, and they hear about this, but they're like, but we have to get our daughter Prescott, Bookcase, whatever her name is, we have to get her into Harvard or Yale or Princeton or wherever.
So this is it right now.
That has to stop.
Everyone needs to refuse to work with people who have degrees from Harvard, MIT, and UPenn until they back down and the institutions are recaptured and de-wokeified. I don't even think, Portnoy was like, until they fired these individuals, I'm like, you got to root out the corruption. You got to grab the weed and pull it out by the roots. And so my attitude is, you want to apply to a job here, just don't put it on your resume.
Yeah. And it has to get to the point that anyone over a certain age, maybe Harvard 20 years ago was different. Who knows? Maybe it was exactly the same. But at a certain age now, if you meet someone under 30 who is very proud and they brag that they went to Harvard, their response has to be just pure laughter. It's like when your friend's like, I'm a huge Browns fan. And you're like, you're a Browns fan? Like, no offense to Browns fans, of course, as a Giants fan. Right. But it has to get that gut reaction of just laughter. Like, oh, you went to Harvard? Oh my God, please.
What did you learn?
Give me a break.
How to point out the different races in the room?
Exactly.
I'm looking for a guy who knows how to, design a building. Yeah. Not how to criticize people based on their race. Next candidate, get out of my face.
Yeah, and I love the way that Dave Portnoy is doing that, and others are saying that. That's the best way to solve these problems, is when the schools become unmarketable because of the product they create, and that is our own fault culturally as a nation. We have elevated these schools too well. I mean, he did go to MIT.
When all this stuff started, you had these Wall Street investors vowing to not hire any of these people. Instantly, the students who signed this document praising Hamas backtracked and apologized. And they're like, oh, geez, oh, no. And it's like, no, I'll take their apology. Thank you. Now, the institution, like, don't stand behind this stuff.
Yeah.
Except that if you go down this path, you lose. But you know, the issue was, there was who was it? Some guy said, don't hold it against these students. They didn't even know what they signed. I'm like, oh, now I'm really going to hold it against them. You signed something without reading it? Wow, you are really dumb.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hire you.
The plagiarism thing just is just further evidence of how corrupt these organizations are. But our own president plagiarized his thesis. He had to drop out of the presidential election in 1980 or 84 because of it.
He took JFK's speeches
and now
verbatim and literally said them as if they were his. And this was back in the day where, of course, you couldn't fact check everything right away immediately. But then news organizations literally took speeches of former presidents and then put it by Biden saying the same exact thing. Yeah. That's how much of a phony, that's how much of a fake he is. And that's how the entire institution is set up. It's propped up all on a bed of lies. And that's why they're so afraid of the truth coming out. That's why they're so afraid of independent media. And this is why I think this moment is so captivating right now, because it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for individuals being able to organize and talk to each other on social media. And this is now where their institutions that they controlled before are totally being called out, or totally being liquidated, or totally imploding. I love it. It's beautiful. I love seeing all of it happen, unfold right in front of me. And let's go. MIT. We need more controversy there immediately. Lots of very high intelligence figures coming from that institution as well that do some really, really shady stuff, especially when it comes to pushing a lot of psyops and cultural warfare on the American people.
And a lot of it being appropriated right now in Congress as they're talking about the reauthorization of FISA courts,
the surveillance courts, and spying on American citizens
right now is in real time.
MIT is essentially the playground of the intel agencies, and they're able to do a lot of really crazy stuff. And then this is not the only controversy that we have with these prestigious institutions. There's more here, folks. There's Epstein, who had an office at Harvard, who literally was able to have office hours and have a cozy relationship with all the young students, most of them, some of them prepubescent students that he had access to.
Harvard?
At Harvard.
You don't got prepubescent students at Harvard, dude.
I don't know. There's a lot of children that are also introduced that are like scholars and super smart as well.
Maybe like daycares or something.
Hey, that man, he's around 18-year-olds. That should be questionable, especially with Harvard giving him essentially his own office. Why did Jeffrey Epstein have his own office at Harvard? That should be the big issue. That should be the big controversy here. Not that she plagiarized everything. Let's get into the deep roots of how all these horrible institutions are doing some really awful things on another level that we don't even know about yet.
You think Epstein was woke?
I think that's a good question.
No, I think he was beyond woke. I think he was just evil incarnate. I don't even think woke has an agenda and an ideology that is trying to promote. He is just the devil.
Well, but I'm sure he was the kind of guy who was like, yeah, sure, whatever.
He was a leftist.
Yeah.
But he wasn't trying to push an agenda. He was just the devil.
I think that the one thing that we really are kind of glossing over is the fact that these institutions, this isn't new, and these institutions have been pushing people out, like every year after year after year after year. There are college graduates going into society that believe this stuff, right? If they minor in this stuff, they go into society and they believe this stuff, and they affect society. We have a crisis of competency coming in the United States and possibly in the broader West. And there are things that, like, if we lose the knowledge of how to do them, then we're going to have serious problems. Like, there's a whole complex world out there that needs to be maintained. Yeah. And if we're dumping out people that can't think, that aren't coming out of the highest, supposedly the highest universities that we have, if they can't think and they're not actually able to do the jobs that they're put into, these jobs have real world consequences. Yeah. I mean, there's the first thing that comes to my mind frequently is the fact that they're having problems filling the air traffic controllers. I don't think that you have to go to Harvard to be an air traffic controller, but you have to be smart and you have to be quick-witted and you have to be able to do the job. And you hear stories about, there's this accident that almost happened, or, this bad call or whatever, planes had to be waved off or whatever because of an error. Those kind of things are going to compound as we have more and more people being put into the labor market doing jobs that they're not qualified for.
Yeah, or
and being hired only because of
exactly.
specific reasons of the way that they were born when they're not qualified for it. As of course the number of these traffic incidences, especially with airlines, has been going up dramatically.
Exactly.
As I'm not walking into the cockpit looking, who's my pilot?
But I think compounding that also is not just that they are poorly educated. Compounding is that they think they are very well educated because they went to Harvard. Yeah. And I'm sure they will tell you, like, look, I just took a semester, last semester I took a course on the Taylor Swift's latest album. Jesus. I mean, that is an actual course. Yeah. Yeah. And you want to say, like, how will that help you at all in life? Yeah. I'm sure it's cool if you like Taylor Swift. But what the hell does that help you accomplish in life?
Yeah.
But they graduate thinking they are very smart.
It's all part of the degrowth agenda.
Yeah.
They want to reduce population. They want to reduce development. And if you take a person, you put them in an institutionalized learning facility for 24 years, and you have them major in folklore and mythology. I mean, at least that's more valuable than Taylor Swift. No offense. I mean, you can like Taylor Swift, but studying that, there's a lot of useless majors. And then you graduate and you go, I can't get a job now. What does that result in? Your failure. Why are young people
to Occupy Wall Street?
Young people are not having kids, and they often say it's because they can't afford it. That's not necessarily the reason, because most people can never afford it and you got to figure it out. But a lot of these kids are saddled with debt. They can't pay rent, and it's because their degrees are nonsensical.
Yeah.
They have no real world skills to trade value.
Yeah, and there has to be, you hear so much about the growing mental health problem of young people. That has to contribute to a lot of mental health. If you are the best intentioned college graduate from Harvard and you did study human ecology and Taylor Swift and diversity and all that crap, but you're still a nice 22-year-old girl, and then you graduate and you have a useless degree with no skill set, no wonder why you have mental health problems, because you can't hold down a job. You aren't qualified for any job. You think you have this incredibly valuable Harvard degree. You have $300,000 worth of debt. Of course, that will lead to drug addiction problems, sexual addiction problems, gender confusion problems, because how miserable are you if you have gotten to this point where you're supposed to be entering into the world of adulthood and you're actually just proven to be an even greater child than when you started the entire process? And
now you're indebted and essentially a debt slave to the big banksters that, of course, you're going to have to now pay off with a horrible corporate job that you don't want to be working in, that you're going to end up for the rest of your life until you retire and then quickly die afterwards.
So you asked Joe Biden to absolve your debt. You go to Occupy Wall Street like you saw 12 years ago, and you lay down in protest. You do something.
But then eventually you cease to exist.
Yeah.
You have no kids. You have no family. You have no skills. You're placed in a home. Clock's ticking. And these people in these polycules, they're going to be 50, 60 years old. They're not going to have any kids. And they're going to be like, I need someone to work to bring food to me. And they're going to be like, screw off.
Yeah.
When we're watching this trend where Gen Z is becoming more conservative, or I should say Gen Z is more conservative in many ways, and in some degrees they're becoming more conservative. You think Gen Alpha and the next generation after that are going to want to spend their tax dollars to fund a bunch of woke leftist commies who don't want to work?
Yeah.
It's already bad enough where we've had this issue. I remember when I was a kid, they said, you're being taxed, young Tim Pool, to pay the Social Security of an older generation. And the way the system works is, if you've got 100 old people on Social Security, you need 200 young people to all give a portion of their revenue to fund the lives of the old people. The argument being, once you're old, you'll have 400 young people to fund your life, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's impossible. So what's going to happen when they do this degrowth, when population is retracting? And you're going to have a bunch of woke millennials in their 60s being like, where's my Social Security? And there's going to be some 25-year-old be like, you ain't taking my money.
No.
And then there's going to be 100 millennials, and there's going to be 50 of the younger generation, and they're going to be like, I ain't working for you.
And that's inevitable because Social Security is insolvent. I think 2035 is the year that it's already insolvent. If you're under the age of 30, that should be your primary issue. Greater than anything else going on in your life, it should be the fact that you are paying into a system that is going to go insolvent, and you will not see a dime of that money. So you are paying for, some liberal, aged hippie.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.